Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. Me and Dustin decided to get together today and do a little. We're just going to be a spoiler-filled instant reaction to the newly released Evil Dead Rise. We both had the pleasure of seeing it within the past few days. We're going to give our general thoughts of no spoilers, then we'll get into some spoilers. So let's just get right into it. Dustin, what'd you think? I know you saw it, last night, I believe?
Yep, I saw it last night and I really liked it. Um, they did a great job with the marketing for this movie. I thought the ads were perfect because they pull you right in. Like you think, okay, it's got the Evil Dead name, so it's going to pull an audience based off of that alone. But then the trailers that we saw and all the marketing was just so creepy with um, Alyssa Sutherland's smile. It's just like, okay, I got to check this out. And I went into it. Try to temper my expectations, but they were exceeded. Like I thought this was a really good. This is I told you earlier before we started this. After watching it, this was my favorite movie in the franchise that I've seen. I haven't seen them all, but this was my favorite one that I've seen.
Okay, so I'm not real familiar with the Evil Dead franchise at all. The first one I ever saw was back in December when we did our Never Seen It month, and Dustin picked the original Evil Dead. So that's the only one I had seen up until this past weekend. I thought it was pretty good as well. It about met my expectations, I could say, because I went into it kind of expecting just a lot of blood, a lot of gore, and a really good performance from Alyssa Sutherland as the possessed mom. She was fantastic in that. Some
Yeah.
bone chilling lines, some funny lines, some great kills. So I would say my expectations were met, and I did end up watching the 2013 remake as well this past weekend. I would say that those two are pretty close for me. I kind of like the 2013 remake better up until the very end of it, whenever they did some kind of over the top stuff. So I would say the Evil Dead Rise in 2013 are about the same for me. Uh, have you seen the 2013 remake? Haven't you?
Yes, it's been probably 10 years. It was probably in 2013 when I last saw it, but yeah.
I know Brian hates it, so we should probably pick it pretty soon. Just because I know he loves
Absolutely, I
those
agree.
movies. But we'll get into the 2013 remake down the road. Uh, I do want to kick this off kind of by asking you a question. You've been kind of harsh on like dead franchises, kind of making sequels out of nowhere. Do you
Yep.
felt like this one lived up to the hype and was it deserved to be made?
When I saw that they were making another Evil Dead movie, I was how I've been regarding all of reboots, remakes, sequels, all that lately with you. I was like, oh God, really? Like, I'm pretty sure I even sent my meme that I made. Originality is dead, or there is no original ideas. But after watching it, see, this is the one that's like, okay, this one was justified. This is a good movie. But there's so many, and I think it paid good enough homage to the original to where I don't feel like it was just a cheap rip off or a knockoff or anything. It still had the bones there of the story and what all's going on. And so my hope is that if we're going to continue down this path where everything's getting remade and rebooted and all that, that they take notes on this film, take notes on Scream 22 and Scream 6, and do it right, and don't just make these lazy cash grabs that I feel like we've been getting more often than not. This one was one of the better ones.
Okay, and I'm gonna piggyback off of that because something I feel like this one did well compared to like Halloween, and I'm gonna include Scream in it as well. They made their own movie right off the rip. They didn't bring back Bruce
Yeah.
Campbell. I mean, I think he might have had like a cameo or something. I'm not 100% sure, but they didn't, just continue off of one of the original movies of the franchise. They did their own thing and stayed true to like the Evil Dead, like the bones of the story. So I appreciated that. And any more thoughts on that before we just move on? I did appreciate the fact that they made their own story and didn't bring back a bunch of legacy characters. They just did their own thing.
Yeah, I've got the cast pulled up now, and I don't think Bruce Campbell had a cameo at all. So, in that regard, I agree with you. I appreciate the fact that they took the bones of the story, but they made it their own. They didn't just do a scene by scene remake. They didn't bring in these names to draw off nostalgia. And so, yeah, I agree with you.
All right,
Bruce
let's jump
Campbell was
into
an executive producer. That's what it was.
him and Sam Raimi. So I
And
mean,
Sam
they were
Raimi.
still involved in a behind the scenes role. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Let's do the opening scene and kind of. This is gonna be spoiler stuff. Opening scene. is kind of not the opening scene once you get to the end of the
Hmm.
movie. But what'd
Hmm.
you think of it? I thought it was really good. It was and it had a really good like title card like presentation. I really liked the opening
Yeah,
scene.
it was incredible. So the opening scene itself, I thought was fine. It was good, and it got extremely gruesome at the end. Towards the end of the opening part of the scene. But then that title card is one that's going to stick with me for a long time. It was incredible how she just levitates out of the water and covered in blood, and then the words "Evil Dead Rise" literally rise over the mountain, scenery behind her. Awesome, and it even reflected into the water. So
Hmm.
they did that 100% right. Now, like you said, they it ended up not being the quote unquote opening scene. It's not the beginning of our story, but when I'm watching it, I'm thinking two things. Number one, damn it, I wish they could have came back to my neck of the woods and shot this in Morristown. Like that just would have been cool. More, pay homage to the original and shoot it in East Tennessee like the original was. But whatever, that's fine. But then number two, after the opening scene, I'm like, who the hell were those people? And I'm thinking that for the majority of the movie. And so that was a major nitpick that I had throughout the entire movie until the end. I was like, what the hell was that opening scene about? But, how did we get from the mountains to downtown LA? But I think, when they tie it all together, I thought it was very well done. But just for that scene alone, phenomenal. Ripping her damn scalp off like that, brutal.
Oh God, it was so cool. I loved it, man. And speaking of like just ripping the scalp off, man, the gore and the kills are really good in this movie. What would you say is your favorite kill? I'll go first, just so you can think on it a little
Yeah.
bit. There's a lot of good ones to pick from, but personally, I like the one where she bit that guy's eye out and then spit it down the other guy's throat and he choked on it. I thought that was an awesome, funny kill.
Yeah. I do like that one. I gotta, how much I love Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Anytime we get a death by wood chipper, boy, that was awesome. And what's funny is when they were playing that, I was like, they really missed an opportunity. It would have been funny if, like, when they to use the wood chipper, they had to start the vehicle or something, and the radio would have been playing "Raining Blood" by Slayer. That would have been the perfect time to play "Raining Blood" by Slayer because all the blood's flying out of the wood chipper. That was probably my favorite death. My favorite because we don't actually see her die. My favorite bit of gore was the scalping at the beginning, though, because that's fucking brutal. But we don't
Oh,
actually see her die. So
it came from nowhere too. Like I didn't expect
yeah,
that. She just ripped that bitch scalp off, respectfully, of course. Man, it was such a good opening scene. I really liked it. I mean, it could definitely
same.
be in contention for like an honorable mention, or maybe even make the if we ever did another top 10 horror scenes. Like that was a really good one.
I think if I'd have seen this movie before we did that episode a few weeks ago, it would have made my list. I think because that was an incredible opening scene, and the title card sticks with me so much that that was perfect.
And another thing this movie does well is you get a really good opening scene. In a lot of other horror movies, they kind of just fall off. They kind of get a little slow. And they don't keep you interested. But I was pretty engaged the whole movie. Like I was like the adrenaline was pumping the whole movie. It didn't have
Mhm.
any like slow parts, so I
I
appreciated that.
agree. I agree because I think it had a lot to do with number one. For some reason, I was invested in these characters without even really, knowing. They just dropped us in their lives. But I like the casting that we got here. But number two, the score. The score was perfect throughout, and so like kept you engaged. And they set the bar so high with that brutal opening scene. It's like, okay, I can't wait to see what's next because if that's the beginning, holy shit. So yeah, I think all those played into it for me staying engaged.
This apartment complex has to be the biggest dump of a place we've ever seen on this show. I mean, it's right up there with like See No Evil. Like those got to be like the top two like biggest dumps ever for a setting of this movie.
Yeah, it's not great. And definitely a fire hazard. I mean, the damn gate to the garage didn't open every time it's supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, let's just move on. What are some of your biggest pros of the movie? Like, what are some of your favorite things about it? Then we'll do cons right after.
Biggest pros is like it seemed, I don't want to say believable because, the subject matter we're talking about, but there was nothing too far fetched. There were some shortcuts taken, I think, like the how they discovered the book, I think was a little bit of a shortcut. There just happened to be a vault there. But in the grand scheme of things, once they played the vinyl and you hear the priest talking about this has to stay buried in a secret vault, and earthquakes do happen in California a lot. I think that everything there was no huge leaps in logic as far as how did this happen, and I thought that was good. I thought the acting from top to bottom was really good. Nell Fisher, who played Cassie, we've been pretty critical of child actors on this show. That sounds horrible out of context, but a lot of child actors, they're children, man. They can't really pull off the emotion that it takes to be a believable actor. Nell Fisher, who played the little girl Cassie, I thought she was incredible. And so
Mm-hmm.
the casting, the characters, and just the overall story were some of my biggest pros. And I told you one of my favorite lines. It made me laugh when Ellie was talking. She's possessed or whatever, and she tells her she's finally free from all you titty sucking parasites. That's a funny ass line. So yeah, I really enjoyed most of the movie.
Yeah, I agree with you about the acting. Uh, the setting was really good too. Being trapped in that dump of an apartment complex, I
Yep.
like that as well. I will get into a con of it in a little bit, but I can't give enough praise to Alyssa Sutherland. She was so good as the villain in the movie. Like
Yep.
she kept me engaged the whole time. She did an incredible performance. I can't remember the sister's her name,
Beth.
but I thought she did a fine job as well. But I do have some qualms with everything that went down inside of that apartment. But I can't compliment the gore and the kills enough. I mean, that's kind of why you went to see the movie. I feel like for the most
Yep.
part, like I feel like Evil Dead fans are just that's the kind of shit they like. Ash has got that big ass chainsaw throughout the franchise, so the
Mm-hmm.
gore and the kills definitely lived up to the hype. Let's do our cons. What were some of your cons, Dustin?
Con number one. I mean, who just drops three pizzas and they're still in the box? They don't fall out of the box and you just leave them. They get back to the apartment and she's like, Bridget dropped a pizza. It was still perfectly fine pizza. So that's just a waste of like $40 there. Con number two is I need to find out what brand chainsaw that was at the end because I use a chainsaw quite a lot and I've never had a chainsaw that could just be sitting for however long and crank on the first pull. That was incredible. But my more serious problems, cons, whatever you want to call it, are okay. This is going to sound hypocritical because what I just said in my pros, but it was a little convenient that that vault just happened to be there and it was so easy to get into. Not that the vault was necessarily buried, that's not too unbelievable, but the fact that Danny was just okay, let me just jump down this hole. There was just an earthquake and it's creepy as shit and I can't see anything. Let me just jump down this hole and find a bunch of stuff that no one's supposed to ever be able to find. And it's not really even locked up. I can just open this with no problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads me to another one. So those vinyl records were in a sealed box, yet they still had like an inch of dust on them. Come on, how's dust going to get in that box? But number two, it's I feel like once inside the apartment and they're trying to keep Ellie out or keep her away, I feel like some of their logic was not the smartest. Like they should have stuck together, but
Oh
too
god
often,
damn.
too
Splitting up
often
was one of my
Bridget
biggest
and
qualms.
Cassie, yeah, they split up. They're off by themselves. It's like an episode of Scooby Doo. Which, by the way, speaking of Scooby Doo, when she walked around the corner with the blanket over her head, we got a Scooby Doo ghost there. That was funny. But and then when Ellie is attacking Bridget with the tattoo gun, what the hell is taking everyone else so long to get her off of there? Like that took way too long before Beth went ECW 1997 and hit her with the chair over the head. Like
Mm-hmm.
there is no reason that she should have got cut in the face with that tattoo gun because you've got your 3-on-1. What are you doing?
Yeah, that was a big thing in the 2013 remake too. It was like, what
Mm-hmm.
the fuck are y'all just sitting there watching these people get attacked for? Like, go jump on them. But that was definitely one of my biggest qualms too, Dustin. Once we're in the house, they get the mom locked out. Why the fuck is everybody splitting up? It's like why is everybody not in the room with the aunt, listening to these damn vinyls, reading this book,
Yeah.
stay together? Like, why would you put the little girl by herself? You know she's going to listen to her mom's voice and get manipulated the easiest. Like, why would she be by herself? That was a big qualm of mine. But this is going to sound kind of petty, maybe. But one of my biggest issues was the movie was so fucking dark you couldn't see that well. That's one of my issues personally. It was dark as fuck. Just because it's a horror movie doesn't mean it has to be pitch black and you can't see shit. Because the lighting's not good in this piece of shit apartment complex. It's like, come on, man. It's like I'm struggling to see shit. Like we're watching a movie. Like I want to be able to see things pretty well.
Well, the power's out. It was candlelight.
Well, but still, it's our viewing experience. I'm not saying it
But
has to be like Midsommar or nothing, but God damn,
Yeah,
you can't see anything.
that was the brightest horror movie ever made, Midsommar. But you reminded me of something. So I mentioned splitting up was one of my problems, but specifically, why did Beth lock herself in the room by herself to listen to those vinyls when she was using headphones? She was going to be the only one listening anyway. So like have them in there so you can keep an eye on it and you can have someone watching your back. That was a big problem I had.
But I also want to agree with you. Like, why would the person jump into that fucking hole like after an earthquake? Like that
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to me. Like you're gonna jump into a parking lot, basically is what it is, parking garage after an earthquake. What if that shit like happens again? And now you're getting crushed. Like what if the whole parking lot sinks in on you? Like that didn't make any sense. If anything, they should have been like underneath it, and like the book just fell to them. That would make more sense to me.
I could see that. Yeah, like maybe it was locked away above head and it fell, but because you even had Bridget yell, "Danny, what you remember? Aftershock is a real thing," or whatever she
Yeah,
said. It's like, yeah, aftershock is a real thing, and you're just gonna jump down in the hole. I almost wish that Danny would have got trapped down there a little bit.
yeah, for sure. Teach them a damn lesson, damn kids. But I agree about the pizza too. It's like it's still in the fucking box. Take that shit upstairs.
She even opened the box, took a piece out, and it's like, oh, the rest of this is fucked. We got to leave it. So,
It's like how is it
I mean,
fucked?
if
It
there's
fell on.
one, I just hope that Keanu Reeves just happened to be passing through that parking lot, be like, oh, free fucking pizza, and just picked it up and left.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves would never. Uh, Another issue with me for me is at the end. It's the final girl, or not the final girl, but the last girl's leaving the apartment, and she sees all the carnage. Bro, who the fuck's gonna walk around this garage like that? Get the fuck out of there! Like, like me personally, I'm not walking around looking at all this blood. I'm getting the hell out of there. I'm scared to death.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I guess I didn't really think about that until you just said it, because I can also see her just being so in shock. She's like, "What the, what the hell's going on?" and wanting to see if there's anyone that needs help. But no, my logic says fight or flight. I'm getting the fuck out of there. There's too much blood. So I agree.
Yeah, for sure. But it was a nice little, you know, tying all the loose ends together, like revealing that that's really the opening scene, but it's actually after everything that happened. Do you think they're gonna make another one? I mean, it made a ton of money. I'm sure they will.
Yeah, I can see them making another one. And honestly, I kind of hope they do, just because I enjoyed this so much. The runtime's great, talking an hour and a half, hour 37, something like that. And like I told you, I didn't enjoy it as much as I did until I realized, oh, this ending is how we got in our opening scene. That's who this is. That's the girl that was on the stomach or on the bed with a fucked up stomach or whatever. I love the way they tied that together, and so I think that Lee Cronin wrote a great movie and directed a great movie. So yeah, I'd like to see another one, honestly, and that's rare for me to say. Give me another sequel, but yeah, I'm here for
Yeah, yeah. Y'all sound clip that one because Dustin don't say that shit too often these days. Uh, I enjoyed it too. I would definitely go see another one. Would you want to see a whole new story, or do you want to see like the continuation of the ant and the little girl?
That's a good question. I think that, man, I think Lily Sullivan and trying to find Nell Fisher. I think that they had such great chemistry. I would like to see a continuation, but maybe it's not their story. Maybe they just see like some shit on the news and they're like, "Oh my god, that sounds like we have to warn someone." Maybe that, and they
Mm-hmm.
get involved that way. Because I think that if it's just them, there's only so much you can do. Like who? That's only two people. I need to see more people get killed, more violence. That's a horrible thing to say out of context, also. But I like for them to maybe come in as the protagonists. They're trying to save the day and warn the people we gotta get rid of this evil. But because also, that book's still up there. Someone's going to
Yeah,
find it. And I know they're going to demolish the building and all that. So maybe that's what happened. The building's getting demolished and they're cleaning up the rubble and someone finds the book. It's like, oh shit, this looks expensive. And that's how it happens. I don't know. Just an idea. But yeah,
that's it.
I would like them involved in some capacity.
Yeah, that's a good way to kick the movie back at because I mean, if it's construction, you can easily see a worker cutting themselves and bleeding on the book. I mean, that's a easy
Yeah.
leap in. I mean, it's not a leap in logic to think a construction worker gets a cut and they bleed on it or something like that. So
Yep.
I can see that happen for sure. I would like to see it too. But like you kind of mentioned, them being not their story, but they get involved, kind of like maybe Nev
Yeah.
and like Scream 5, maybe kind of a
Yeah.
thing. But I also don't want to just like rip off everybody else's like ideas as well. It's
Sure.
like horrors in a box right now,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
except for A24. Shout out to them for ideas. Really appreciate them. Uh, and Brian better not edit that shit out because I know he doesn't like me or A24. But anywho, we're on here for 20 minutes now. We can just give our final thoughts. Uh, I think it was a good movie. It was fun. It was exciting. A lot of good blood, a lot of good gore, which is what I think all fans really wanted, honestly, from it. Uh,
Hmm.
Good acting, great villain performance from Alyssa Sutherland. You know, of course, it has some horror tropey stuff that it's kind of frustrating. Everybody splitting up, bad decisions, like Dustin brought up. Just watching the girl getting attacked by the fucking villain and not doing anything. That was pretty
Hmm.
frustrating because you got numbers on them. So, yeah, that's my final thoughts. I thought it was good and I thought it delivered on what people wanted.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this at this point, surely you've seen the episode, you've seen the movie by now, because hopefully you're not listening to spoilers before you go and see it. But if you are doing that, shame on you. And definitely, I recommend seeing it. It's I think it's one of the better movies I've seen this year. It's got replay value to me, rewatchability, because I already kind of want to see it again. There's something else we didn't mention that I thought was fantastic. Was there's like a tip of the cap to The Shining with the
Yep.
elevator opening and the blood just pouring out. That was awesome, and the blood looked good. All the effects in this movie looked incredible, and so
Mm-hmm.
really not too many flaws for a movie. Have fun with it, and don't go on a full stomach because you might puke. There's a lot of gore.
For sure. Uh, like you said, fun movie. Definitely go check it out. We'll review it when it comes out for sure.
Yep.
If we can fit into the schedule, it was a fun one. Just want to thank all of our fans and listeners. We really appreciate y'all, and stay tuned for some giveaways. You know, Scream 6 is coming out on digital, Paramount, all that good stuff. So we're gonna be giving away some more shit. Tune in and make sure you vote for our next few reviews. We appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good one.